Sailing to the remote, unspoiled outer islands of the Bahamas rewards us with empty beaches and stunning anchorages. Navigating Florence across shallow sandbanks to visit the second deepest blue hole in the world gives us a new challenge in more ways than one. Nice!
Oh yeah!
Yes! We are Amy and Matt. We spent the last 6.5 years sailing our 37-foot sailboat Florence around the world. In that time, we have crossed 4 oceans and over 46,000 miles have passed under our keel.
Now we have made it back to the Caribbean, we will explore these famous islands before we recross the North Atlantic Ocean to return to where we began this voyage in England. It's a stunning day today. We're in Atwood Harbour, which is absolutely beautiful, just anchored on 2.5 metres of water, beautiful sand bottom and a gorgeous beach, but we're going to be doing some boat maintenance today because on the sail here we noticed that some of the stitching on our genoa on the UV strip was come undone and a bit of it was flapping off. So what we're going to do is unfurl the genoa and have a closer look at it and work out whether it's something that we can fix here on board just by hand stitching, or whether we need to take the sail to a bigger island where hopefully we can find a sewing machine and do a bigger job on it.
I think we've got the chafe from when we're tacking the genoa and it's rubbing up against the shrouds, but I also think it's UV because if you look at the side that's inside when it's furled, the thread is much stronger than the outside, which is starting to fray. So unfortunately, I think we're going to have to stitch the worst bits and then find somebody with a sailmaker sewing machine somewhere in the Bahamas, hopefully. We'll just get them to run all the way up the blue stripe and that should hold it back across the Atlantic.
The good thing is that the UV strip is doing its job because it's protecting the rest of the sail, and the stitching on the rest of the actual sail is really good because when it's rolled up, the only bit that shows is the UV strip. And actually it's only this much of the UV strip that actually shows, so the stitching further up on the UV strip is still really, really good.
Although our surroundings are spectacular and we are itching to explore, our priority on board has to be keeping Florence maintained, ready for our upcoming crossing of the North Atlantic Ocean. So we took the opportunity of the light winds to drop the genoa to the deck for a closer inspection and some repair work. UV causes the most wear and tear on a cruising boat. No matter whether we're sailing or at anchor, the sun is relentlessly beating down upon Florence and anything that isn't covered up.
It's not just the genoa that needs stitching, the stack back, which covers up the mainsail when we're not using it. This stitching that sits on top just gets UV'd all the time, so that always goes, that's the first thing that always goes. So I've got to stitch the entire length of the boom on both sides. And there's a few other things that need doing as well, like I need to change the anodes on the keel cooler and the bottom of the boat underneath the boat, which needs snorkeling to do that. And I was going to do that here because it's nice and shallow, it's only 2.5 metres deep. If I drop my tools I can easily pick them up off the bottom. And I wasn't too worried about the massive barracuda that was under there yesterday or the small reef shark that was under there yesterday. I have just seen, quite simply, the biggest shark I have seen on an entire circumnavigation. It circled Florence and went flying across. I think it probably ate that massive barracuda and it came up next to the dinghy. And I was going to say it was about 6 foot long, but I just realised that it was bigger than the dinghy and the dinghy is 9 foot long. So there's absolutely no way that I'm going to get in there and change the anodes. That'll have to be done somewhere else. where there aren't massive sharks.
Where's that?
I don't know where that is, but it's not here. Beautiful day.
So we've got all of the jobs done on board and we've come just 1 mile around the corner and we've got this spectacular beach all to ourselves. Absolutely gorgeous. I think this is the most beautiful place we have been to in a long time.
Well, this is the Bahamas. We certainly feel like we've arrived now. Beautiful, beautiful sand beach. We were actually planning to move on 2 days ago and we're talking about staying here tomorrow as well. It's just so beautiful and so quiet and peaceful. It's amazing.
One of the best aspects of cruising is having the flexibility to change your schedule when you find somewhere as stunning as this. No matter where we look, the colours of the sand, sea and sky sparkle like jewels under the sun.
These outer islands are sparsely populated and only see a tiny percentage of the visitors that flock to the central Bahamas every year. So walking along a deserted beach without finding any footprints but your own is actually normal here.
Eventually though, our itch to see what's round the next corner reasserted itself and we made a dawn departure for the western end of Crooked Island and onward to Long Island.
Line out for 2 minutes and straight away there's a fight. I bet it's going to be another barracuda that we can't eat, but we'll find out. Oh, it's not a barracuda. It is not a barracuda.
It looks like a tuna. It's got a long fin. Nice!
Oh yeah!
Yes! Yes!
That is going to be a beautiful dinner. Cool. Right, now we just need to bleed this. Well, that is a great start to the trip. We were just setting off at dawn. We're leaving Atwood Harbour and heading down to the other end of this island group to the corner of Crooked Island, where we're hoping to be able to actually get a SIM card for the phone, so we're hoping to get reconnected there. And they was like, why don't we put the fishing line out? I said, because we keep catching barracuda, which I have to then get the hook out from between their sharp teeth and throw back. But we did put the line out and we didn't catch a barracuda, we caught a tuna, which is going to be very tasty for dinner. Nice way to start the trip.
We are heading for Landrail Point on Crooked Island, which is 35 miles from Atwood Harbour. That should take us about 6 or 7 hours, so we set off at dawn to leave enough time to get ashore to the shop when we arrive.
So we're just coming up to the corner of Crooked Island. So we're going to now do a jibe and hopefully get into the lee of Crooked Island and find a nice anchorage and hopefully a phone shop so we can get a SIM card. But the breeze has picked up a little bit, so some big waves. Just going to be careful with the jibe. We put 2 reefs in the Genoa and then we'll jibe and then we'll furl it and do the rest of it around the inner foresight. Yeah? Okay, that's the main centralised. Ready for joy.
This way. Okay, driving now.
Good course. We're on auto. And then we'll just go.
You ready?
Yep.
We still have the inner forestay on at the moment from our offshore passage to the Bahamas, and that means that we can't just let the Genoa jibe across, as it would get wrapped around the inner forestay. So we have to furl it first and then unfurl it on the other side.
Sailing into the lee of Crooked Island, we found a beautifully calm anchorage with unbelievable colours of water and sand.
We rely on getting a local SIM card when we arrive in a new country to get connected to the internet. This is how we normally upload our videos and other content. We do have a sat phone for weather and limited emails, but that can't handle photos or videos. And unfortunately, since we arrived in the Bahamas a couple of weeks ago, we haven't been able to find an open phone shop with a SIM card for sale. So as soon as we anchored, we headed ashore to see if our luck would change here.
So this is the mail boat which brings all of the supplies for the entire island, but it only comes 3 times a month. Now today we were trying to get a SIM card for the phone, and a guy called Nappy overheard us in the shop asking for a SIM card and they didn't have any. So he very kindly drove us halfway across the island to go and pick a SIM card up, and then he also gave us a tour of the rest of the island, and we met quite a few people on that tour. Everybody was incredibly friendly. And here, waiting for the mailboat this evening, we've met most of those people again. Because everybody has come down here to wait for their stuff. Everybody orders food, frozen goods, absolutely everything they could possibly need. And then if they need anything else in between times, then they just get top up from the local shops here, but the local shops don't really have very much. So this mailboat actually comes from Nassau.
The population of Crooked Island is about 250 people. Here this evening we've counted at least 90 people, so this is a major event for the island. Everybody seems to know everybody else, which gives it a real community feel, and there's a very relaxed atmosphere. So everybody has the time to chat with us whilst they wait for their items to be unloaded. The mailboat waits while the containers are emptied and then takes them back on board before it moves on to the next island. Armed with our SIM card and a better understanding of life on the outer islands of the Bahamas, we headed on for Long Island.
The usual passage would be to sail the simple deep water route up the outside of Long Island, stopping in at Clarence Town. But we've got a forecast for large swell coming in from the northeast, and that means that Clarence Town could be an uncomfortable anchorage. So we have decided to sail the more complicated shallow route on the lee side of Long Island, where we will be sheltered from the swells, but we'll have to sail in very shallow waters. However, gliding through turquoise shallow waters with no land in sight is one of the real highlights of sailing in the Bahamas.
Well, I guess this is your typical Bahamas sailing that we're now experiencing. We're sailing across the bank between Long Island and the Exumas. We're coming up the, I think it's called the Comer Channel, from the south of Long Island, and we're going to curve up through it and back to further up Long Island to a nice sheltered anchorage because it's going to be a bit windy for the next couple of days. But today is really light winds, absolutely beautiful turquoise water. It's only 3.5 meters deep across here, so we've actually been sailing across here for hours because there's miles to go across this sandbank. So we kind of got used to it being really shallow when we first came onto the sandbank this morning. We were a bit nervous about being in this shallow water, but this is just absolutely gorgeous. Just a beautiful day to be out on the water.
It is mesmerising to watch Florence's shadow flitting across the sand bottom with just a metre under the keel. The seafloor is so gently undulating here that the depth gauge reads the same number for minutes on end. So much so that we wish for it to change, if only just to prove it's still working and we're not about to run into a higher ridge of sand.
With Florence anchored securely at Salt Pond on Long Island, we headed ashore to take a look around. In stark contrast to the shallow bank that we have just sailed Florence across, Long Island is home to the second deepest blue hole in the world. This hole dives down to a depth of 202 metres below sea level, and it is a mecca for freediving.
We've come to Dean's Blue Hole, which is the biggest attraction on Long Island. It's the place that is famous for freediving because this blue hole you can walk straight from the beach and then it suddenly drops off to over 200 metres. So this platform behind me is what they use for freediving, and there's a weighted line which drops down and people try and dive as deep as they can. So one of the guys that was on the platform earlier I was chatting to, he was down to 63 metres and then one of the other guys was over 100. To come here and not have a swim, but we are not going to be pushing anywhere near those depths.
I might get down to 5 metres.
The water is normally supposed to be crystal clear, but it's actually open to the open ocean, and so it's a little bit cloudy today because the swell's coming in and just churning the water up.
The world record depth for freediving is 130 metres. And it was achieved here at Dean's Blue Hole in 2018. The deepest we have ever been to is 32 metres, but that was with scuba tanks on our backs.
From deep holes in the ocean to a giant hole in the ground, we made a quick stop at Hamilton Cave, the largest land cave in the Bahamas. We were shown around by Leonard Cartwright, whose family owns the land above the cave and who spent his childhood playing here.
You see white particles from it?
Yeah.
It's to crush the conch shell and mix with the clay.
These caves have seen a lot of use over the centuries. Originally home to the Arawak tribes, they were more recently used as a hurricane shelter for the island's residents.
Yeah, this I still collect soil from my little farm.
The caves are now home to 5 species of bats, and Leonard still collects the soil rich with bat guano to fertilise his plants above.
There are many limestone caves like this scattered throughout the islands of the Bahamas. Perhaps the most famous is the Thunderbolt Grotto, further up the island chain.
This distance is good. Since we are sailing in a swimming pool, basically, it's absolutely beautiful water here, so crystal clear. We both had the same idea. We thought, wouldn't it be really great if we could get an underwater shot of Florence sailing past with the dome? But to do that, one of us needs to be in the water whilst the other person sails the boat past, and then the person in the water has to trust that person is going to come back around and pick them back up again. And I've got the short straw of jumping in the water simply because I've got longer arms, so I can actually climb out of Florence without needing a swim ladder or anything like that, so it makes it a bit quicker to get in and out. So we're going to give it a go, but it's probably going to take us about 20 minutes, half an hour to get one shot, but what else are we going to do on a beautiful day like today?
Okay, we're just going to try and slow down, stop as much as possible. Matt's going to jump in and then try and swim ahead of Florence.
This distance is good.
Amy needed to know roughly what distance to sail past at, so that Florence fills the camera frame nicely.
We agreed an amount of time, a number of seconds that I would sail on for before I turned around and got him. I wonder if he's getting worried yet. Okay, I'm going to tack around. Where is he? Times like this, I really appreciate the size of Florence. She's just like a big dinghy. Really easy to sail single-handed.
Holding the dome with half above and half below the water is tricky whilst being bounced around by even the smallest waves. The nearest land other than directly down is about 6 miles away, so it doesn't provide much shelter, and even on this calm day the wind creates a bit of a choppy sea. We're using a cheap dome with our GoPro 8, set to a wide angle and 60 frames per second to allow us to slow the footage down by 50% afterwards, which smooths out some of the bouncing around caused by the waves.
Cool. Should I come past one more time, or?
Yeah, one more time, yeah.
Should I come directly at you?
Yeah, I'll dive under.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, I'm going to aim straight at him this time. He's going to swim under the boat. Not quite sure I like the idea of running over Matt, but I'm about to. What is there? Ooh! Shall I come and get you?
I will do this.
Well, she's kind of heaved to at the moment. Well done. Unfortunately, the 360 stopped recording. Well done. Good exercise for the day.
That was definitely.
Think you got some nice shots?
Well, we'll see. Who knows? Trouble with something like that, it could have all been a waste of time, but you know, the water's
I
nice.
had fun. Did you have fun?
Yeah, I had lots of fun. I thought you were going to run me over several times.
I thought I wasn't going to come back to get you at one point. I could see the worried look on your face.
We'll see how that comes out. That'll be interesting.
Next time, we sail on through the azure waters to a breathtaking uninhabited island and make it into Georgetown in time for their biggest regatta of the year.
If you enjoy our videos, please subscribe to the channel to make sure you don't miss an episode, and that's absolutely free.
We are usually a couple of months ahead of the videos in real time, and that means that right now we should be partway through our North Atlantic crossing, sailing Florence offshore from the Caribbean to England via a couple of islands on the way. If you'd like to see where we are in real time, then please join the crew over on Patreon to see the tracker map where we post a daily update.
As always, we want to say a massive thank you to everyone who supports the making of these videos, and especially our star patrons.